What you want to achieve in your final result, you want 1 to 2 cells in thickness of your sample. So you want to view it under the microscope and you don't want to see a clump of cells on top of each other. So you want very thin sections to be able to see your tissue, and you want multiple sections of it so you can have a long ribbon. Okay, right here you have your tissue that is in the middle of a lot of wax. I don't know if it's very clear, but it's right there. It's yellowish orange. It's a small dot in the middle. So your goal is to get rid of all this excess wax through sectioning and through basically cutting it all off. You want to have a trapezoid shape in the end that looks like this. That'll give you the thickness and folding, the trapezoid shape of the tissue that you want to look at under the microscope. So let's get right into it. You need to have 2 parallel lines that align your tissue. So there's my tissue right there. I'm gonna make a thin line on top and a thin line below it, and they have to be 2 parallel lines, so it's gonna look something like this. So these 2 parallel lines are gonna really help me make sure I don't get too close to my tissue and damage it. So I don't want to damage my tissue. I want it just as it is, and I want it to be surrounded by a trapezoid. So I'm going to start cutting off the excess wax in very thin sections. They have to be thin and they come off on their own. So if you do a very thick one, so for example this was somewhat thicker, you would have a messy wax and it could break and it could damage your tissue, and that's absolutely what we don't want. So now I'm getting closer. See, I'm getting closer to the line that I put as my label. So I get to it, cut it, and stop at that. Next, I'm gonna do the other side. Same way, very thin. Okay, now I have this, and I know that my tissue is right there in the middle, and I just want this. So I'm gonna start cutting off the excess wax on the 2 sides, and I'm going to have my baselines that are gonna be my guides basically. So I'm gonna do a tilted line on either side, and that gives you the trapezoid shape that you want to end up with. And start with very thin sections. Take your time and don't hurry, because if you try to hurry you're gonna get messy, thick wax pieces out that are gonna break your wax that is very close to your tissue, which is something you don't want. So something that's going to really matter and make a difference in the microtome and how your final ribbon looks like is the angles. So you make sure that you have really straight angles. So you want to have really sharp edges. So this is the final look. This is basically what you want your sample or your tissue to look like before you move it to the microtome. You want a trapezoid shape with sharp edges like these, and the tissue is right in the middle. So there's wax in front of it. There's wax in the first layer. So when you start using the microtome, the first thing that's gonna come out is just pure wax, and you're not gonna get a clear tissue instantly. And we're gonna demonstrate all these at the microtome, so let's head on over there. This is your microtome. This is a microtome, and it is basically a machine that cuts very thin slices of your wax sample, and you can decide how thick you want your slices to be, or your ribbon to be, and you can also adjust a lot of things in it. So we're gonna get right into all the options in it. The main things that you're gonna use are this blade right here, and you need to keep the blade slips closed at all times, unless you have already started the sectioning and your wax is in there and you're during the process, that's the only time the blade should be opened. Other than that, these should be locked in, the blade should be in place. First thing you want to adjust is this. So this is how the wax is supposed to be moving, and this is where your sample goes. So first and foremost, this goes to the highest height, and then you lock it in place from this knobs over here. This is locked, and then I open this mouth thingy, and you lock this right in. So you lock this in. So once this is locked in, you can start adjusting this based on the sample that you have placed. So you want to make sure that the blade doesn't go in the middle of the wax or the end of the wax right there from under it, because then it's going to just chop off your wax block and everything you did was useless basically. So you close this and you have this knobs over here. This knobs is locked and then it's open. So when you open it, you can adjust how close the blade is to your sample. So you bring it close and you unlock this now that you've stapled this, and you bring this lower. So you lock it here and you bring your blade close to the sample so it can barely touch it. So you touch it. Now you know this length, this position is where it will touch your sample, and then you just lock it in place. This is how close you want it to be. This is locked so it won't move while you're sectioning. You open this because you need to move your sample. Okay, so right now you have your blade placed perfectly and aligned with your sample, and before you start sectioning, you need to tell the machine how thick you want your ribbon to be. Your ribbon is the thing that's going to result over here. So you wanna allocate how thick you want it to be, and for our case, because we want 1 to 2 cells, we want it to be less than 5. So maybe I'll do 4 in thickness. And now I'm gonna open up the blade, unlock this, and begin sectioning. So you just do circles with this knobs on the side, and you keep turning it. At first, you're just going to get extra pieces of wax and things that are on the side, extra wax that's on the sides, and that's called angling. So you're angling out your tissue sample so the whole first base is equalized or on the same level. So we're just angling now, and okay, so now we can see we're starting to get a ribbon. You don't necessarily have to use the first ribbon that comes out, but if it's a good enough ribbon, you can just take it. See, this ribbon has a few punches in it, so we're not going to use that, but I'm just going to show you. This ribbon is much better, and it doesn't have any holes in it like the other one, like the first one did, so you can see it's clearer, and it gives you a better shape. Still, we can't see our sample, so we're just going to keep sectioning until we get our sample in the middle, and just discard these ribbons. So as you can see, this is the ribbon that we want to result in. This ribbon still has very little sample, and just clean our blade every once in a while so that the ribbons we get will not have little extra pieces of wax that are going to get in the way. Clean that out. Okay, so now we have the ribbon, and I think this is a fairly good one, so we're just going to take this ribbon and gently move it over to the water bed